Okay. My name is Susan Stewart with Her Collective. We have our second episode today. We're super excited to have you all join us for our Power Hour series. Today, we have our ambassadors out of Florida for Her that will be speaking to us, and they have an awesome presentation that they've been sharing in the industry. It's called Discovering the Next Generation of Title Professionals. And I'd like to introduce you to Amy Gregory, president at Florida Agency Network in Florida, and Andrea Summers, who is the operation leader for Network Transaction Solutions, also in Florida. So I'm going to turn it over to them to kind of get us kicked off and introduce themselves. But we try to keep it just 59 minutes so that you can get on with your day, and we just power pack the information in there. So Amy and Andrea, take it on.
Take it away. All right. Well,
Thank
good
you.
morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be where you are. It is officially 3 minutes into the afternoon for Andrea and I and several on this call in Florida. But I know some of you are just mid-morning. So we are so excited to present today. We presented this recently at Ulta One as well in New York. So if you attended that presentation as well, you may have different takeaways today. I've definitely sat through some presentations before that I heard the same one and it just hit me a little bit differently, or I had different nuggets to take away. So Andrea and I are super excited to join you guys today. Andrea, did you want to say anything before we dive in?
I think you covered it, but I'll echo what Amy said. We're super excited to present today, and thank you guys for attending this session. So we love talking about this stuff. So this is one of our passions.
Absolutely. So we would like to use the chat feature so that we can interact a little bit. If you have any questions, definitely let us know those as well, and we'll watch for those. But just by your responses in the chat, we would like to first know what attracted you to title. Did you dream of going into the title insurance industry as a child? It was just, what you dressed up for Halloween was a title insurance professional, like all of that. So did you just dream about it? Were you born into it and your family was already in the title business or maybe the real estate business and you kind of were exposed to it like that? Or like Andrea and myself, did you fall into it and it was definitely not on the radar, but super grateful that you did? So in the chat, if you'll put that either dream, born, or fell, we'd like to know what describes you and your experience and kind of what got you into title. That's a good chance on me. Had no idea. So we have an overwhelming response besides Sandy.
Everybody dreamed of this?
Yes.
That's what I'm wondering. We didn't dream of becoming title agents?
Yeah. Midlife career change. Yeah. So fell is the overwhelming response. As expected, and as we find, most of us did not plan this. Most of us did fall into it. A few of us were born into it, no doubt about that. But here we are, and many of us have built long, fulfilling careers in this industry. Just a brief overview of my walk. I had started in high school. There was a business cooperative education program, like an OJT program, that I had to have a business job, and a local title company in the Tampa Bay area had advertised to my high school. I had no idea what title insurance was. I was too young to be part of the real estate closings with my parents and have any interest in that, so didn't even know that side. I just wanted a business job so I could leave school early. Those were my priorities at that time. And I started at Aldi Donaldson Title, for those that are familiar with Tampa Bay, back in my junior year of high school. I answered the phones, and really after I was in it for about a year, I grew such a passion for title and really wanted to know more and more and more. So I just worked my way up to post-closing and processing, and then ultimately closings. And I had really grown a lot at Oldie Donaldson over 7, 8 years. And then Fidelity National Title had approached me about an opportunity to continue to grow my career. So I joined Fidelity National Title in the Tampa Bay area, was there 7 years. I don't know what the 7 year thing was. And then this guy from Plant City had this dream of expanding his mom's company outside of Plant City, Florida. His name is Aaron Davis, and we met several times, kind of talked about where we were at, where our goals were. He told me that his dream was to start 5 locations of Hillsborough Title. And boy, did I fall for that hook, line, and sinker. We now have over 40 locations on our title side throughout the Tampa Bay area, 18 years later. And we've started ancillary companies. We have an IT company, an accounting company, and I feel like we're just getting started. So I've just been super blessed by amazing mentors along my career path, but I definitely fell into title. It was not what my family was from, definitely not what I dreamed of. I wanted to be an attorney. I'm grateful though that my path went the way it was, or it did, because I'm just amazingly blessed with my career, what it's done for my family, for those that I have the privilege to work with, and all the amazing people I've met. So Andrea, what about you? Did you dream and aspire to be in this world of title insurance?
I didn't, and I'm really not surprised that we didn't see anybody who dreamed of that in the chat. But just like Kathy said in the chat, no clue what title was. I fell into it, and for me, it was back in 2001, and I was taking some college classes, and I needed a job, so I busted out the classified section of the newspaper, and this office job jumped out at me. So I applied, and it was in the middle of a refi boom back then. So they were just hiring bodies at that point. So I got the job. And I honestly, for those first few weeks, I did not know what was going on. I was doing the tasks I was given, but did not know the bigger picture at all. And Stephanie, you said in the chat, you fell, but you love it. And I think that's what happened for me I really found a passion in title. For me, as I learned another task or helped another department, it just all started to click what I was doing and what this whole wild world of title insurance was. And I fell in love with it. And, I stayed at my first company for 9 years. And then by then it was, 2008 or 9, and I was approached to manage a busy REO closing office. So I did that for 5 years and learned a ton there as well. And, it's one of those, I think we can all agree, you think you've heard it all or seen it all, and no, we haven't. So that was my introduction to REO. Hold on, I don't know title as well as I thought I did, because this world is wild. So I did that for 5 years, and Amy Merritt mentioned Aaron Davis, our CEO, and I met him on an airplane, and he just had all of these amazing ideas about growing his company in Florida, and I was truly inspired by the end of that flight. And then I met Amy and our COO, Mike, and had one of the funnest interviews I've ever had. And I knew these were my people and I had to join. So I have been at FAN for 10 years today. Actually, it's my work anniversary today. So that's my path into title. And I think a lot of us have those similar. I like to say title found me. And so that's how it happened.
And Andrea, just to back up, did you say that you found the job through the classified ads and you read the newspaper to find that? Wow.
That's how we had to do it back then. I think some of us, hopefully, a lot of us on this call remember. Now it's a lot easier with apps and everything else. But yeah, remember getting the marker and circling.
Yes, no doubt. Good stuff.
So, all right. Well, so now we obviously, these are the ways we found out about title, and everybody's got their story, but it does, we are in this place of, okay, most of us didn't plan this, and how do we make sure that the next generation even knows this path exists? Obviously, like us, most students or young adults don't know what title insurance is, let alone that it could be a career. So it's not even just hiring. Nice of you to call that out, Amy. Yeah.
We're the same
Yeah.
age, so I can do that,
Exactly.
Suzanne. No doubt, no doubt. But yeah, it
Um,
was the way that you had to find jobs. We didn't have, internet searches back then. It was just
Indeed.
really like a word of mouth or reading or whatever you had to do. Totally different. But generations today are different than when we entered the workforce.
But the same way, they've got to hear about what we do and what title insurance is through word of mouth. It's not like their schools are talking about this or their
Mhm.
colleges are talking about this. So it's not even a hiring problem that we have. It's really more of an awareness problem. How do we make sure that they know this path exists? And for us, we really settled on high school. Like if we want the next generation to choose title, we have to get in front of them early. And for us, we've found that it's ideally before they graduate. And high schools are amazing. They're full of these smart, curious students who are being pushed towards, these more traditional paths of going to college or nursing or IT, but that might not be what they want. And
Mhm.
so that's really what we've done is approach them before they graduate, these high school students, and that's what we want to talk with you about. Um, I think to start, we'd like to show you a short interview. This is with Ulysses. He's a recent high school graduate that we hired. And so you can kind of hear about his path and title and what it's been like for him.
It was funny, right when I was walking in, they gave her the mic and she started speaking. And of course, I'm just sitting there like any other high schooler. But she had such a great pitch, and also she really like said about real estate. And I think that's the main thing that grabbed my interest was I wanted to do something in real estate and I wanted to learn a skill. Wow, I'm from a really long way. It's been like a year and almost a year and a half. When I first started, I was entry level. I didn't really know what I was doing at all. I mean, basically support in plus closing. It was mainly learning, when the file comes to me, what I need to do, what I need to look for. So yeah, started very in the back, and this past year, coworkers, they're amazing people. I've been able to go and jump from the backside and now into actual title. I started off as CSR and now I'm processing files and then I have my own closer. So being able to multitask and being the receptionist, but also I have my own files and bringing commitments. I've never thought I would be here, you know what I mean? If you told me this, like my high schooler being entitled and now being able to help all my coworkers and everything. So the growth was immense. Oh goodness, my first impression of title. Wow. Being 100% honest, no idea. I was confused on buyer's agent and selling agent. I always wondered why you say selling and not buyer's agent.
So that is Ulysses. We're going to jump back to the chat because I would love to hear what you guys think. But Ulysses is Gen Z, and that's the groups that we have been targeting and trying to get them in, and talking to you about today. That's the generation. What do you hear that Generation Z values, just based on the things that you heard Ulysses say? If you can just throw whatever you think you heard in the chat of what Gen Z or what Ulysses as part of that generation would value. Kathy, yes, that interview can be made available for high school and presentations. Love it. Time and flexibility, career without a degree, a job as an alternative to college. Love that. Variety, flexible. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and growth opportunities. Yes, he did talk about that, didn't he? Gen Z, and we've got a Gen Zer. I value flexibility and honesty about growth opportunities. So thank you, our fellow Gen Z that's here today. All right. Environment at work. That's great. Career without college. Connections with people. Absolutely. These are things that he talked about. So, Amy and I have done a lot of generational research, and Gen Z is one that we've studied quite a bit. So, what do they value? What we've learned, and you hear it from Ulysses too, is purpose and impact. They want work that matters. So you heard Ulysses talk about, I love having that skill set to help realtors, to help buyers and sellers. So that's purpose and impact. Growth potential, that clear path to advancement. And we have Pierre, who's on here, Gen Zer, loves the flexibility and honesty about growth opportunities. That's super important. I think it's great when you hear Ulysses, like, think about the growth that he's had in a year, and he says that is extensive growth. That's the way he sees it, as he's kind of moved one step up little by little. So growth is important. So making that clear path to advancement, he feels that everybody really supports his growth and wants to see him grow. They want that sense of community and belonging. So you heard Ulysses talking about the sarcasm, the banter, like he loves being part of that. And we do have that in our industry, internally, we do have those things and our inside jokes that we laugh about. So he loves that sense of community with our industry. Authenticity, that's something that Gen Z really values. They can spot corporate speak a mile away. And so, one thing we did when I approached Ulysses is, and when I was talking at that high school, is I wasn't showing up with this cold jargon, industry jargon. I was really more talking about how title protects homeowners, how it supports communities, and allows professionals to have to grow these meaningful careers. And that's really what resonates. So it's good to know what they value, because that's who you will be seeking, that's who you'll be interviewing, and that's going to be the next generation that comes into our industry. All right, connecting with their mindset. That's taken time. Amy and I have been doing this for about 6 going on 7 years now. And in the beginning, maybe we did show up and sort of talk a little bit above students' heads with title. And so we really had to learn and tailor our language and get better at it. But when you talk to Gen Z and when you talk to these students, use language that connects. Instead of walking in and saying, well, we examine and ensure the marketability of title. Oh, that's it. We lost them. The eyes glaze over. They're gone. But instead, I talk about, we make sure that people actually own the home they just bought. And then we protect them if something goes wrong. Often I will talk about, real life. I get all these students in a room and I say, okay, everyone close your eyes and imagine your dream home. What does it look like? How big is it? How, is it 2-story, 1-story? So they get this image in their head. And then I say, imagine saving up and you get to buy that property and you get the keys and you have moved in. Imagine decorating it, how exciting that would be. And then imagine someone knocking on the door and they're claiming they inherited the house and it's theirs and you don't actually own it at all. That's scary, right? And so that's what title insurance is. It protects you from problems like that. So, and that's what I talked to them about. So focusing on a real life story, not just the process, but what it really means. I love to share quick, relatable stories with students when I talk to them. Maybe a young closer that came into the industry and now trains others, or a processor that helped a first-time home buyer close just in time. We share these stories of how, maybe an examiner who found decades-old issue and saved someone's property. These are the things they like to hear and that forms that image in their head. We make it visual when we connect with Gen Z. So using videos, stories, infographics, things they can see. Absolutely highlighting the career paths and flexibility. Again, we've got our Gen Zer on here who mentioned those things. So highlighting those things. Students want to know, what's a job that I could do? How much could I make? What does growth look like for me? Is there room to grow? And then, of course, can I have that work-life balance? So really highlighting these things that our industry truly does offer. And I think that's the exciting thing, is everything in our industry, we actually offer Gen Zers and what they value. And then, of course, when you're connecting with this mindset, making it interactive, making sure that you invite Q&A and hear their questions. And I will tell you, we've had all kinds of questions from our students that we talk to. It's fun to hear them start to understand clouds on title. Amy and I talked with a classroom once about clouds on title. And we had one student ask, well, can clouds happen on auto titles? So they were, connecting this. So we had one student ask us, how much do you make? So they wanted to know, what's our salary like? Is this something then to get an idea. So, be prepared. You'll get all kinds of questions, but they're honest questions and they're things that students want to know about our industry.
Yeah, we did redirect that we have had 20 plus years in the industry, so we could talk about those opportunities once they had that experience. The first time they ever asked us that, it definitely caught us off guard. We learn a little bit more. We've had one that asked if we drug test, and we joke that obviously we now need to consider that since you're asking. And yeah, they kind of got quiet. So remember, they're high school kids, looking cool to their peers that are with them, all of that. So just remembering that. I know that this can be very overwhelming. As Andrea said, we started with this project almost 7 years ago, and we started at the Great American Teach-In. Is how we started. So there was an opportunity. I don't know if you have that in your local area, but the Great American Teach-In is where different career paths come into the local high schools for a day. And there's normally, 20 minutes or so that we're given to talk a little bit about what we do to expose our industry. And so we talk through what we do. We brought lanyards with us. That's when keys with the lanyards were super popular. And so we had fan lanyards that we gave away. But starting with your local schools, charter schools, technical schools, vocational schools, and starting with the guidance counselor, or if there's a career counselor, sometimes that can give you a foot in the door to know what do they offer. As a business owner, one thing that the local high school students do not have, if they're not part of a program like this, is to know how to interview and how to write their resumes. And so if you go in, maybe you bring in lunch. Normally going to the school is an easier task to accomplish. For the students to leave the school, there's some liability and forms and all of those things. And unless it's an organized program like Andrea and I have in our local community with some of the high schools, probably won't be able to accomplish that. But if you go to the high schools and offer that you will share tips on writing your resume, tips on interviewing, what you look for in the interview, and maybe what some people have done in an interview that maybe disqualified them or maybe made them not a top candidate that you considered. And I think giving them those tips. You could be part of career days, maybe do a speaker series on interviewing and resumes and getting ready, how to dress, all of those things. Even mock interviews are good things so they can actually test out their skills. And you can maybe bring in some of your team members, they could be involved in that as well. Also, the organizations and programs that are involved in the high school. I personally was part of FBLA, which is Future Business Leaders of America, when I was in high school years ago. I was the president of the FBLA, and I took a lot away from that program. So even finding out if they have those programs, if they do, how you can be part of that is just starting to get your foot in the door there. Also, when you're talking to these high schools, frame it as a career exploration activity, not that you're there to recruit them. You really just want to talk about what the title insurance business is, how, if college is not for them, maybe it's not in the cards for them based on the means that it takes. Maybe they don't have the time based on their responsibilities in life. All of those things, letting them know that title does offer such career options. I think that's the biggest takeaway that people have when Andrea and I speak, is that we both started in entry-level jobs. But it takes time, and there is a path, and there's not a direct path. Maybe you're going to take a little more time as a processor, or maybe there's other things that you want to learn, whether it be sales or whether it be behind the scenes with bookkeeping and the accounting departments and those kind of things. Make it easy for them to say yes. Come in prepared with a clear idea of what you'll offer and how much time that they'll need. They're not going to move up to a processor maybe in 6 months unless that opportunity is there. And maybe it's going to take 2 or 3 years based on how your steps go in your company. Share that with them. And then collaborate with local workforce development boards, community colleges, or business certificate programs. Maybe there is something offered in your local high school, which I wish there was in so many high schools, but we've got a long way to go. Title associations also may offer some training tools or scholarships that you could be part of. And just looking for those little things that you can just start to see what's attractive in your area for the high schools. Mentorship and career development programs are also a good tool that you can utilize. You can introduce the students to title just as a first step to let them see. So maybe if there is somebody that is interested, maybe they can come for a job shadowing, or you can go to the high school and maybe set up in a classroom and do some job shadowing so they can see what does the day in the life of a receptionist or that administrative assistant that's at the front. What does she do? What does he do? What does a processor do? What do they look for on a contract? What is even a parcel ID number? Like, what do we utilize some of the different websites for? And then to actually see the closing, we do with part of the program that we are part of, they'll do a field trip. And so we actually have a closing that we mock that's going on, and we do it the old school way, so the buyers and sellers are on both sides of the table. We know that doesn't happen today, but it used to happen. But to give them a clear visual where there's a realtor and there's buyers and sellers and the closers, and they're passing the documents and explaining the documents, we let them see that just to get a visual of it. And then create entry-level pathways with clear visual career ladders. One thing that Andrea and I have learned of this generation that's entering the workforce and that is in the workforce is that they don't want a straight line. Where I feel like when I was in, I wanted that straight line. I wanted to know step A, step B, step C, step D. I really wanted that clear path. And I feel like the generation that we have now really wants to know that there's options and that they have a say-so in their career path. Also, encourage your team to get involved. This is not just on you. Don't take this on as a sole project. Your team members will bring different things to the table, and maybe they want to take the lead on attending some of the events or building what the training program needs to look like for the resumes and the interviews, or whatever that needs to look like for your company and for your area. And then, I think let's talk about an action plan. So, Andrea, I think the biggest thing is start small and start local. Don't go to 5 high schools. just go to one.
Yeah.
Start.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I totally agree. Pick one school, one counselor, or one event. That's it. That's the easiest thing. And then offer to speak at a career day, or like Amy mentioned, we have Great American Teach-In, but there's different career days at different schools. So maybe offer to speak at one, or offer to host to host students for a tour at your office, or maybe even just join a school's advisory board. You'll figure, if you just pick one school, one counselor, you start there, or you learn of an event and you choose that one event. But you want to build the relationship first. And as you start to, as trust grows with these high schools, you're going to find more opportunities. And that's what we have found. We started with the one school, one Great American Teach-In, and opportunities just started to grow from there.
Yeah, and I mean, we are definitely blessed now that we have a local business, and especially this one woman that has really taken the lead and grown this. And so they really organize a lot. They're involved in the schools and all of that. But know that it didn't start that way for us. We have looked at college programs to do a similar thing. That was not as successful for us as the high school, because they had a vision as college students that had graduated with their degrees, what compensation would like, what the career path looked like, and just entry level and title, it just didn't match up for us. Not to say it wouldn't ever, but just based on the overwhelming rewards that our team members have received that have joined us from this in the past, and that they continue to grow on, we found better success just for us locally in the high schools.
100%. And so we started doing this together, but it doesn't have to be you alone. We have actually brought in so many more members of our team to do this with us. So the next action step would be identify a champion within your company. It doesn't just have to be you. Choose someone on your team who loves to mentor, or who's passionate about education, someone who would connect well with young people. And really let them enjoy this. You give them a few hours a month to focus on outreach or mentorship efforts. So again, this started with Amy and I, and a crazy idea, and it's just really grown to where we probably have about 7 of us that do these different things, whether it's speaking at high schools or hosting the students on the field trip when they come visit us, or job fairs with high school students where we have a booth, those things. So don't think this needs to be you alone.
And I will tell you, I'm not as involved as I once was, not because I don't want to be, just because I don't have the time, but I get to be a visitor sometimes when they're doing these as opposed to a coordinator. And it's really cool to see how the program has grown. When Andrea and I had a vision and started this, those that have come along beside us and really taken over some of these have created better processes and created better flyers and better tools and had such amazing ideas. So what we started as a baby is really, really kind of grown, and it's super exciting to see the team add those things to it. I think that's the coolest. So create a basic toolkit. Remember that we know what title insurance is. So you don't want to create a flyer that we will be able to take things away from. You want just a basic Title 101 flyer. And I would encourage you to have several generations look at this flyer that are coming into the workforce from those generations to see, is this attractive? Does this make you want to pick up the flyer? If not, maybe it needs to look a little different. Maybe it needs to read a little different. Maybe we're giving too many details. We're not high level enough, or vice versa. Maybe we're not giving enough details. So definitely ask the generations. I ask my children, they're mid-20s. And it is amazing their viewpoint. Sometimes I wish I didn't ask their viewpoint, but we won't talk about that. But it is good to know like what would attract them. I am sad that my children they don't want anything to do with the title business. They are in law enforcement, so they're doing good on that side. But and then just a career ladder. So again, don't have that straight ladder, just A to B to C to D. It's some people will need that. And I think that is definitely one of the options, but it can't be the only option. There needs to be other things. And at FAN, we're blessed that we have different ancillaries and those kind of things. But even within just the title world, we don't have just one ladder. Again, sales is part of that. Marketing is part of that. Reconciliations, accounting, yes, is part of that. Sheeting funds, following up on those outstanding checks or balances, or everyone has a strength they can bring. So just create those sample career ladders, because that visual has went a long way for us. Those are some of the things we learned in the early days to make sure that we were presenting on those different ladders that were available.
Yeah. And then make sure another thing that you can have in this basic toolkit is staff story profiles. So they love to hear the stories of how we got into title. And if you get to be in front of them, absolutely tell your story of how you fell into it or were born into it. But with staff, if you create a document that just has real employee bios with their how I got into title journey, this really allows students or this generation to picture themselves in this too, because ultimately they had never heard of it, just like we hadn't. And then it's really important to have FAQs. So, just answers to questions that students or schools might ask from, what types of jobs are there in title insurance? Do I need a college degree? That comes up quite a bit, and teachers and schools will ask us as well as students. How much can I earn? What is a typical day like? These are questions that you'll repeatedly get. And then, of course, how to apply. Where can I apply? And make sure you have those directions as well. That will get you started. If you have this action plan, you do this within the next 30 days, you will already have started to make a difference. I always, Amy and I talked about this not long ago, but if every title company, and especially in this webinar, everyone on this webinar was committed to reaching out to just one school next year. I was going to say this year, but we've got not that long for this year. So, but if you were committed to reaching out to just one school, if we all did that, then we'd have we'd be introducing thousands of students to a career that they otherwise would have never known existed. So that's exciting to just kind of get to build and change this industry one conversation at a time with these students. Now we wanted to, go ahead.
Let me just add to, Kathy had mentioned IT, and absolutely IT is such a big part of what we do, but it doesn't always attract the same people that want to be the processors and closers that want to be on the IT side. So definitely diversity with that. Also with your basic toolkit, make sure you include something about your culture. You all heard it from Ulysses, and you all answered that too, as far as the team members and working with those that you're passionate with. The culture is a big part. Sure, we have a job to do. Again, that's the different generations. My generation didn't need that. The generations behind us, they definitely need that. They need to know the culture that's there. We do Metropolitan Ministries at the holiday times, at our team member seminar that we do every year. We always do a charity event there. And it's so good for the heart, but it's really so good for our team members to be part of that and to know that the company has priorities in giving back and being part of our communities and part of our culture. So make sure that you include those things as well in your basic toolkit. I think that'll go a long way with who you're trying to attract.
And how you have fun. We created sort of a culture video that we like to play for students if we have the opportunity to, and it's showing our charity give back, like Amy said, but it also shows us having fun, the different events and bonding, team events that we've done here at our company. So they love to see that. Again, it just is that visual that puts them into picturing themselves at your company, doing these things alongside you.
Yeah, I will tell you, this has worked out really well for us, but we've definitely had some that didn't work out. And so there's a good rate of good successes. One of the things that the program does that we're part of is just like scholarships, they have a signing day on the stage for those that accept a job offer through this program. And that is my favorite part of what they do in this program. They do everything else too, but they definitely have that signing day and that experience for that team member that is going to take a job, and just having their moment on that stage. It's really a cool program. So something to look
Very
forward to.
special.
Yeah. We want to say a huge thank you to Susan and to the Title Collective for inviting us today. We are very passionate about this topic, especially with our industry and those that will be retiring from our industry that have such vast experience and knowledge. And we want to embrace them and allow them those opportunities, but make sure that we have those next level of generations that are entering the workforce in title and really learning what we do and gaining that experience, which, as we all know, takes years to get there. So thank you so much, Susan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was going to say, we have a couple minutes if anybody has questions. I know, Kathy, hopefully I answered your question. You had asked, where would you suggest looking for base salary info for an entry-level position? And that's what Amy and myself do. We will look at similar types of positions online and see what is being offered for those. So one entry-level position we have in our title offices is our customer service representative, CSR. And so that's really, that person at the front desk. They may be making copies or collecting mail or greeting buyers or realtors or sellers as they come through the door. So we look at receptionist jobs. What are those paying in our industry? Another entry-level position is in our lien search department. So teaching these students how to search, how to do municipal lien searches, searching for code and utility. And permit by, those types of things. So we look at online research jobs, what's out there that are entry level online research jobs, and kind of tailor what our starting salary would be. So hopefully that answered that. But any other questions that you guys have? How much time do we spend a month or year? That's a good question. You do spend a little time, not a ton.
Some months are crazier than others, depending on like the field trip and those kind of things. I would say on average per month, probably 5 to 10 hours on average per month we spend probably on this project. Some months are, a little bit more. If we have the field trip is a full day event. Speaking at the schools is normally 3 hours or so for those, but those are really spread out throughout the school year. So it's not, in 1 month, all of those happen. But I would say that, and then what the other team members add as they add on, I would say probably 5 to 10 hours per average a month.
And it's worth it. Again, we get these amazing personalities, Ulysses being one, but we have so many others, and they are just it's so fulfilling, honestly. And I think this is why one of the reasons we're so passionate about this is it's really is fulfilling to get to introduce this industry that we're so passionate about, that we have all fallen in love with, and that's why we're still in it, and get to share that with this new generation.
Awesome. If you have any questions after, our email addresses are on here. We are an open book when it comes to this, so please feel free to reach out now or in the future if you ever have something. And how many students? So no, they have not all worked out, Suzanne, definitely not. I would say we've probably had 25 students over the years that have joined. And if I had to guess, I'd say probably 5 to 6 didn't work out. But the others have worked out to the capacity that they did. We did have some that were with us a couple of years and discovered that just title wasn't for them, and they went on to their careers or ended up going to college, those kind of things. But we have a small percentage that hasn't truly it's just not worked out at all.
Yeah, so be prepared for that. It's not, you're going to meet these students and they're going to be with you for life. It's interesting because a few of them have decided, because they've been in this part of the industry and learned a little bit, that they want to go the realtor route. So I've actually had a few several leave because they've decided that's what they want to do. So as they learn, they sort of figure out what energizes them, and hopefully it's a position that we can offer. It tends to be, but not always.
Well, perfect. Those are great tips. Any other questions, everyone? Like I said in the chat, I will send out the video and links, and I'll include Amy and Andrea's email addresses so you guys can reach out to them if you'd like. But thank you so much, you guys. That was fabulous. I think it's something that's very needed in our industry for sure. I've tried myself to get my daughters into the title industry, but they weren't having it. So,
Same, Susan.
you know, they may turn around in 10 years when they're like, whoa, that's a pretty decent job. We'll see how that works. But anyways, it's something we all definitely need in this industry, and knowing how to reach these other generations, and just even people in older generations like myself as well, being able to show them that this is a career path you can go into, and it's rewarding, and it's all about your grit and how hard you work. And you can go far. So thank you so much for all of that. And we will have our next episode in December. It's going to be a goal setting one with Kristen Scherfleaf with Stewart Title. So that will be coming out. Hope to see you guys at that one. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you for our next Her Ignite episode 3. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.